Ah, so this is the Kingdom of Inselkov. Although we are both maritime nations, the environment is completely different from our Tamora. How fascinating. Candace stepped off the boat and looked around, holding her bag in one hand and shielding her face with the other. Unlike the Tamora Republic, known as a land of wizards because of the products of magical engineering that you see as soon as you leave the port, this place is the typical image that comes to mind when you think of a port. There were fish hanging here and there drying, and also many merchants haggling loudly over the prices of their wares. It was a very lively and bustling atmosphere, but somehow there was a certain tranquility. Are you really going to be okay alone? Wouldn't it be better if I helped you too? Natalia asked as she got off the boat, her hands full of her sister's luggage. Although Candace had told him several times that she would take care of it herself if he left her in Inselkov, he couldn't help but feel worried. Yes, go home. You're already late because of me. How long are your daughter and your parents going to wait? I am not capable of taking care of anyone. What worries you? Who cares who? Candace shrugged, her voice absurd. Ophelia was so exceptional that she lived her entire life as a second-rate magician. Candace was also a magician known for her genius. But now that Ophelia had lost her magic, no one could match her. I would worry about that. I would worry if you would eat on time and if you would go around missing something for no reason. Natalia shook her head and responded. She was a very unattractive older sister who was only good at magic and very bad at everything else. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. I'll take care of it. I don't believe that you can do it yourself thing, Natalia said, shrugging her shoulders. But what is the reach of that tracker? Although they said the range was tight, he didn't hear exactly how much. At her sister's question, Candace looked at her out of the corner of her eye. Hey! That's a 1 kilometer radius. That? Is it that narrow? Although the Inselkov kingdom was small compared to the Palace Empire, it was still a nation. How was it possible to find Isla in such a narrow detection radius? It would have been quicker to look for a needle in a haystack. I can't do anything. It will be a little difficult, but this is the limit for now, Candace said with a sigh, her face impassive. Ophelia had placed security magic so complete that it took months to break through a single layer and enable tracking. Natalia shook her head slightly, as if the thought of searching for Isla in that narrow detection range was overwhelming. Where do you want to start looking? First, let's check the slums. Let's see if there are hideouts where illegal immigrants may be hiding. Natalia nodded at Candace's response. It was a plausible approach. If he were given the same mission, he would probably investigate that first. Then, take care of yourself. It was, in fact, a meaningless comment. Nothing would change Candace's identity if she was going to investigate dangerous places. Rather, it would be the people in the funds who would be in danger. Are you leaving right away? The sailors also need a few days off, and since we're here, we should see if there's anything good. After all, we are merchants. Yes, then contact me. I'll be in touch. After saying goodbye to her sister, Candace rented a room at an inn near the port. She was tired today, so she thought she would recover from her hangover and get going early tomorrow. And the next afternoon. Are you here? Yes, sister. Despite all the ups and downs, including the fact that several weapons had been reduced to ashes, Candace, who had taken control of the Inselkov kingdom's main intelligence guild in an instant, was standing in front of a bar in an alley. They say that everyone who recently escaped from the Palace Empire is gathered in this bar. Although I'm not sure if they are what you are looking for. One of the guys who had been laughing and joking with Candace, who had broken into the Information Guild alone until morning, rubbed his palms and said playfully, "Sister, sister." She didn't particularly like being called Big Sister by a dark and cruel bully, but she was glad that he was able to find Isla. Candace pulled the tracker out of her coat pocket, just in case. But he remained silent. Then it's true. It was so easy to find, it was amazing. And, in fact, when he thought of the image of Byron, these dirty alleys did not come to mind. Although their relationship was not particularly deep, she had known Byron for a long time, having accompanied him to the Wishafen estate 15 years ago when Ophelia was sent there on a mission for the academy. Byron, the first prince, a scoundrel who caused an accident in the capital and was exiled to his friend Roderick's estate. To her, who remembered that arrogant appearance, Byron was the image of someone who would live a luxurious life without being able to let go of his vanity even when he was persecuted. But I guess I should at least go in. Just because the detectors weren't responding, I couldn't turn back. They said it was a den of criminals fleeing the Pele Empire, so anyone could know Byron's whereabouts. Come in. Yes, sister. Sister's damn voice again. Candace shook her head slightly and walked into the bar. The dark interior was as unkempt as it looked from the outside, and it smelled musty, a mix of dust, cigarette smoke, and men's sweat, making it difficult to tell if the ventilation was working properly. Candace frowned slightly at the pungent smell and sat down at a corner table. The informant who was following her sat in front of her and pointed to a man. It's him. Whether coming from the Palace Empire or leaving here, smuggling and unauthorized passage are impossible without passing through it. The man was sitting in the center of the store, chatting loudly. He seemed to have rented the place. He was the epitome of a painted gangster, with a white sleeveless t-shirt, a thick gold necklace, and a huge skull tattoo on his muscular arms. Wow. That's amazing. I had never seen a thug who looked like a thug. As she screamed loudly, slapping the arm of the informant who accompanied her, all the thugs around her turned their heads to look at Candace. Oh, that's true. But, sister, could you lower your voice a little? The informant, sweat dripping down his face, looked around. At a glance, he saw that the atmosphere was becoming tense. Hey, why are you so worried? We are also respectable guests. Candace elbowed the informant in the side. A sharp pain, as if he had been stabbed with a knife. Although he had already witnessed her magical abilities with his own eyes, the power of her magic made him question its necessity. Why would anyone need magic? Those sharp elbows were already weapons. Hey, ma'am. Do you use the tent alone? That's going to bother me. And then a group of thugs approached to start a fight, apparently annoyed by Candace's loud voice. She didn't like the derogatory tone of voice or the way they called her ma'am, but she also found it unpleasant to hear someone who had been speaking so loudly, as if they were the only ones in the store, ask her to shut up. Does this mean that some can speak and others cannot? Candace smiled mischievously and raised her eyebrows slightly. I don't have time to deal with you. Why don't you continue drinking what you're drinking? This lady, do you know where this is? As Candace spoke, waving her hand as if swatting away an annoying fly, the thugs, unable to contain their anger, began to approach menacingly, cracking their knuckles. But that was only a moment. They stood paralyzed, as if frozen together. It wasn't by choice. Candace had snapped her fingers and cast a spell on them. It was a spell that controlled the air around them, binding their bodies. It was a spell that could be broken with just enough force, but unfortunately, the neighborhood bullies weren't very strong. That? What is this? What have you done to my body, witch? Can't you untie it right now? Although nothing had been done to them, they were so scared that they screamed. You should have shut up. Candace, ears alert to the noise, trudged toward her goal. The thug who was said to control smuggling and illegal immigration to the Palace Empire. I have something to ask you. As Candace spoke, teeth bared and mouth open, the thug, who was holding a mug of beer the size of his face, looked at her with a bewildered expression. "Don't bother me, and go. This guy is too busy drinking beer." He turned his head and tilted his glass of beer, ignoring the strange woman who suddenly spoke to him. But no cold beer entered his throat. He looked at his glass in confusion, and it was frozen in the same way he had tilted it. Thinking that perhaps he was dreaming, he tipped it over and gave it a good tap, but the frozen beer was no longer liquid. "Shall we talk now?" Candace smiled, blowing on her index finger, which was now smoking coldly.